Welcome to the History Options presentation. My name is Mr. Curry. I'm a History Director for Delta Academy Trust, and I'll be talking you through what you can expect if you choose History as a GCSE option at the Vail Academy. So this is a summary of what you will learn in GCSE History. There are four exciting options, and I think there's something there for everyone. The first of which is the thematic study, Medicine Through Time. Now, this is really about being able to explain where there is change and continuity across four different time periods, and medicine is used as a vehicle for articulating that change, being able to spot the patterns and being able to explain why change happened, why it was so quick, or indeed, why things stayed the same. This includes a study of the Western Front during the First World War. You can see an example there of Dr. Harold Gillies, who was a pioneer in plastic surgery. This, of course, being a war that was mechanized on a scale never seen before, and it caused horrific injuries as a result of artillery, machine guns, and rifles. Students will also learn about the Middle Ages and how medical theory was based on the idea of the body being made up of a balance of four different ingredients, four different humours. They will learn about how significant technologies helped to cause change, such as the printing press in the Renaissance period, how important individuals such as John Snow in the industrial era helped to drive forward new ideas, such as germ theory, and in the modern period, how new technologies allowed new discoveries to be made, such as DNA, and how medical understanding is now not just about germs causing disease, but how there's a missing piece to that jigsaw, that some diseases can be hereditary. And of course, there's an understanding there about lifestyle too, how lifestyle choices can make an impact on disease. Students will learn about the British Depth Study, Anglo-Saxon and Norman England, which is a study of Anglo-Saxon society and how the death of Edward the Confessor led to a succession crisis where there was four major contenders, probably the most famous of which was William of Normandy. He wins the Battle of Hastings. Students will assess why that was able to happen and then look at the extent to which William was accepted as the King of England. There was a number of different rebellions against William, and of course, as a consequence, there was some harsh punishments, including the harrying of the North, where it's believed 100,000 people were killed at the hands of William. And finally, assessing the degree of Normanisation. How much change was there? What's the comparison between Norman England and Anglo-Saxon England? What was different? What was implemented? Not just castles, but also cultural changes, language changes, changes to the church, changes in systems of administration, such as the Domesday Book. Students will also learn about the American West at the Vail Academy, which is really a study of migration from the original 13 colonies in the east of America to the west and to the central part of America until the whole continent has been colonized. And that had a number of different consequences, including Native Americans being forced to leave their homeland, having to resettle in different parts of America. They will look at motivations for migration, probably the most famous of which was the California Gold Rush, where over 100,000 people would want to migrate from the very far east to the very far west of America. And problems that this migration brought up. There was, you're talking about a situation where lots of people were rapidly moving into remote areas, and there was very little law and order, very little administration or government or structure. So there was a number of problems that had to be overcome, and students will learn about how that was done. And of course, this will also highlight conflict, problems between citizens of the United States government and the original Native Americans. And they'll learn about a series of different Plains Wars, including the Battle of Little Bighorn that you can see there. The final topic of study is Weimar and Nazi Germany. And this is about how the First World War impacted on Germany. What did they have to accept under Versailles? What were the consequences? The Kaiser abdicates, Germany experiments in this new system of democracy, the Weimar Republic, which has a number of challenges to overcome and then enjoys some success in the 1920s and then some failures in the 1930s. And those failures open up the door for Hitler to become Chancellor of Germany, not just because he's a great speaker, but because there's all kinds of different factors, and students will assess that, answer that question, why was he able to become Chancellor of Germany? and learn about how he was then able to transform himself into a complete dictator of Germany, and what circumstances allowed him to do that, taking advantage of situations like the Reichstag fire, and consequently being able to close down all political opposition, having no political choice other than the Nazi Party in Germany. And then we'll learn about what life was like for Germans in that system, under that dictatorship, Hitler's dictatorship, and how it's a double-edged coin, really. You know, for those that were part of the German community, the accepted German community, and those that were not, you know, the Jews, the disabled, the homosexuals. And they will explore how Hitler was able to maintain that dictatorship, you know, without any real significant opposition. And what was done, what methods were put in place to secure that dictatorship. Assessment at GCSE history is purely exam based. There is no coursework available, and this will take place across 3 different exam papers. This all happens at the end of year 11, and there are no resits available. It's just final examination at the end of year 11. These exams take place on different days, so students will not be expected to sit any more than one of these papers on one occasion. They're quite long papers. First paper is around 15 minutes. That's the medicine through time. Paper 2 is longer because it combines 2 different topics, Anglo-Saxon and Norman England, and the American West. And paper 3, which in itself is worth 30% of the GCSE, Weimar and Nazi Germany, that's an hour and 20 minutes. So what can you expect in a classroom at GCSE history? Well, to some extent, it will be much of what you've already experienced in Key Stage 3. So drill tasks will be taking place. This is really important as part of your GCSE because there is quite a lot of content for you to try and remember. And these drill tasks, which are knowledge questions, you know, trying to recall learning that has happened, maybe, you know, a long time ago, maybe learning that happened in year 10 when you're in year 11, is helpful just to keep in touch and remember these things. Collaborative work is really important, particularly in history, where trying to assess things from different people's perspectives. So if we can work in collaboration with others, it maybe helps us to understand how people can see historical events differently. That links to a lot of work on interpretations, how historians have interpreted the past differently, how it's possible for 2 different historians to have 2 different opinions about the same event, and your job would be to try and explain why they have that opinion, why have they come up with differences, and to be able to, you know, formulate your own judgment. Which one do you agree with the most, and establishing a basis for that agreement. Why do you prefer one to the other? Video clips and visual sources are an important insight into what the past looked like. It's really important to try and build a mental picture of different time periods, particularly to support the medicine unit. GCSE pods will be used as part of your homework, maybe sometimes in class as part of revision, but again, an important tool for you to use to try and recall the knowledge across 4 different time periods. And reading will be structured as it was in Key Stage 3, so we'll be working through text together, annotating it together, establishing the meaning of difficult and key words, and also really trying to get under the skin of what sources are driving that, what's the real underlying meaning behind a source, what can you infer and deduce from source and interpretation material. So there will be enrichment opportunities available as part of your GCSE study, including a visit to the Thackeray Museum of Medicine, which would clearly support paper 1, Medicine Through Time, and delighted to announce the return of the Battlefields trip. Information about that will be available next year, and this will allow students to experience the Western Front, not exactly as it was in 1914, 1918 obviously, but allow them to maybe make that better connection with the conditions and circumstances of the war. So where does history take you to? Well, traditionally that's an A-level in history and then perhaps onto a degree studying history, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Many students feel as though that a study of history would automatically mean a career in history. That's not necessarily true either. Some people will become archivists or historians or become an archaeologist, but there is lots of examples of where history can support other professions, like journalism, for example. In history, you are dealing with lots of information, managing data and compiling your own written answer based on all that information, which is very much what journalism is. The law profession embraces a lot of the skills that are given to you as a historian, challenging different points of view, taking account of different points of view, and then synthesizing that into your own sort of theory or judgment. And if we look at some of the skills that our employers are looking for, such as critical thinking, problem solving, well, all your history lessons are inquiry questions. And as a historian, you're solving that inquiry. Teamwork and collaboration, we've already discussed how important that is. Strong work ethic. History is a very rewarding but challenging GCSE. There are 4 topics that are being studied, 3 terminal examinations in year 11, and you will only have success in that if you're prepared to work hard in your own time. And employers recognise that. Anybody that's got a good grade at history GCSE, employers know that that person's worked hard, they've been diligent, they've taken the study seriously, and it says a lot about you. I think it will open a lot of avenues for you in the future. And finally, just an example of some famous and well-known historians, people that have studied history, and including a whole list of former American presidents and our own king, Charles III. And I think this just demonstrates what history can do for you as an individual. As a history student, I think it says so much about you. It says that I'm an intelligent individual, I'm hardworking, and I'm prepared to take account of other people's points of view. But at the same time, I'm not scared to make a decision. And you can see that these organizations here, Sony, Bank of England, Barclays, BP, at some point or another, they have all had people with history degrees in charge of those organizations. So history doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a historian. What it does mean is it's going to give you a whole host of skills that's going to allow you to make an impact on the world. So finally, thank you for listening. I hope that History GCSE is a serious option for you, and please don't hesitate to get in contact with the school if you've got any further questions. Thank you.